Good evening. More than 50 years ago, our speaker tonight was first sworn in as a police officer and quickly rose to become the chief of that agency. He then became executive director of the Virginia Legislature State Crime Commission, and then was commissioner leading the Virginia Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. Notably, he was appointed to serve in the Virginia Governor's Office as Deputy Cabinet Secretary of Public Safety, where he oversaw 5,000 employees and a $1 billion annual budget. Dr. Colvin went on to earn his PhD with a research emphasis in the executive leadership. He then came to Christopher Newport University in 1998 as a faculty member and created some of the original courses for the minor in leadership studies and became the founding chair of the department. In May 2010, Dr. Colvin was appointed by President Paul Triple and served for 7 years as Dean of the College of Social Sciences. And during that time, served for 5 years simultaneously as the Dean of the Luter School of Business. Afterwards, he was appointed to serve as Vice Provost. Then, he was appointed by Interim President Adelia Thompson as Interim Chief of Staff, where he was responsible for the administrative operations of our university. Upon the inauguration of William Kelly as president in July 2023, he appointed Dr. Colvin as Vice President for Strategic Initiatives. In this role, Dr. Colvin has helped lead the university-wide strategic planning project that created the Strategic Compass. Dr. Colvin will begin his retirement later this calendar year, having served more than 27 years at CNU and having taught hundreds and hundreds of superb CNU students. His wife, Dr. Tian, is a leadership studies professor at CNU. His son, Chris, is a 2012 CNU graduate in physics and computer science. His daughter, Shauna, who is a cardiac RN, joins us tonight also. Some of our POP members are from the western part of Virginia, and so is Dr. Colvin. He grew up in the mountains of Allegheny County in Clifton Forge, where his parents, grandparents, and other ancestors lived. His brother still lives in the Colvin home place, a farmhouse that his great-grandfather built by hand. As he looks back over a career totaling more than 50 years in which he observed, questioned, endured, practiced, learned, researched, wrote, and taught about leadership, in the next 50 minutes, he will share some key lessons with us, thus the title, 50 Years in 50 Minutes. On a personal note, I was first introduced to Dr. Colvin in my self-group and leadership class during my freshman year. We read his amazing works on leadership studies, including Sailing the 7 Seas of Leadership, Colvinisms, and Why I Studied Leadership. After he came as a guest speaker to our class, Dr. Lisa Hubel sent both Dr. Colvin and Dr. Tian my final project for that course, where I compared the consequences of leadership across different cultures. From there on out, Dr. Colvin became an incredible mentor to me, opening doors to amazing opportunities, sharing stories of his time as a detective, which, to his surprise, only encouraged me to pursue criminal law even more, and writing recommendation letters for scholarships and award nominations. But most importantly, he influenced me to take cross-cultural leadership, one of the most impactful classes I have taken at CNU with an amazing professor, Dr. Tian. Both of them have offered me support and welcoming smiles throughout my years on campus. It is funny to think back to the moment I realized that my 2 mentors were married. It all made sense. So tonight, he will give his last lecture, then join 2 of his cherished former students, PLP Director Lacey Gray Hunter and Leadership Professor Lori Throop, for a discussion and then answer any audience questions. Dr. Colvin's impact on this university and the leadership department is undeniable, but for many of us, his greatest legacy is beyond the classroom. It's the guidance, wisdom, and kindness he has shared. Thank you for everything. We are so grateful for you. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Colvin.
You all look great. Wonderful. A lot of friendly faces out there. Thank you. Stephanie, thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm really honored that you agreed to fill that role. I want to acknowledge tonight President William Kelly and First Lady Angie Kelly, along with Christy Morton, a former student, who is the rector of the Board of Visitors and who serve as leaders in my life. Would you all stand, please, and let's acknowledge the President, First Lady, and Rector. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge President Emeritus Paul Tribble and First Lady Rosemary Tribble, former President Adelia Thompson and First Gentleman Lynn Thompson, who could not attend tonight, but who I understand are watching by the magic of electronic live stream. So we want to say hello to them, and we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, President Kelly, for inviting me to offer these comments tonight, and for your steadfast dedication to leadership, and for keeping leadership as a distinctive at CNU, as a core value, and importantly, increasing the scope of leadership and the spread of leadership across the university. I think we've got a great future ahead with you in that role, and I appreciate you. Thanks so much. Also, a shout out to President Tribble, who 27 years ago had the vision to create the PLP and the Leadership Studies Department. And without that, my contributions here would really not have been possible. I have a lot of colleagues, friends, faculty, staff who are here tonight, and I want to thank you, including our Leadership in American Studies faculty and our PLP staff. Each of you lead the way every day. You carry the torch. You go first. A thanks to Kenneth Kidd, our Deputy Chief of Staff, to PLP Director Lacey Gray Hunter, and Logan Gill, our President's Fellow, for the 1,001 details it took to get ready for tonight. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Also want to indicate that Logan did the PowerPoint you'll see. She did in 2 hours what it would have taken me 2 weeks. So I really appreciate Logan doing that. Now, I want to thank my wife, Dr. Tien, my daughter, Shauna, my son, Chris, grandson, Grayson, who's 26, and his fiancee, Coral, and grandson, Dylan, for being here tonight. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. I appreciate it. Now, one grandson, who's 20, is working tonight and couldn't be here. And the youngest grandchild, a daughter, is 1.5 years, and she just didn't think she was ready for a wild night like this, so she stayed home. Would you all stand, my family? Would you stand? Let's say thank you. Thank you. So you saw that, right? There's Tien and I making sure the fountain's working properly. And there we are at the youngest granddaughter's birthday party. And then there's my son and my daughter, Chris and Shauna, on the end, and we were at a family event. So thank you for that. Now I'm going to give you fair warning. Since this is my final lecture, I'm going to use a few other personal photos. So, there you go, just to let you know they're coming. I want to thank the former students of mine for coming tonight, and for the many who let me know they'd be watching by live stream. Cool beans? Get down. That was the thing we had to do in class. If I said cool beans, everybody had to say get down. Cool beans? Thank you so much. And I know the people on live stream are just going for it. All right. Now you all are tough. You demonstrated your toughness by your willingness to endure yet another lecture from me after you graduated. And many of you drove to get here, so thank you. I really appreciate you doing that because you brought me so much joy in the classroom. If you ever endured one of my classes or even took one of my classes, would you stand, please? Thank you so much. Thank you. Now I want to thank all the current students who are here tonight, you. About 1,000 of you. This is an impressive looking crowd. This is wonderful. Thank you for being part of this amazing PLP program. You are the reason this was created 27 years ago. We've been waiting. Where have you been? It took you a long time to get here. Well, we appreciate you being here. You, like those who went before you, will be a force multiplier for good. I don't think you know how important what you're doing is, but I want to try to convey that tonight. Over the years, a number of former students have let me know that I love my time at CNU. My major was great, but learning about the leadership process really made a difference in my life. It helped me build the toolkit that I needed to succeed. And some of them told me, I thought this was fascinating, that they went to a job interview, and the interviewer, once they saw what PLP was, stopped the interview basically and said, no more of those questions. Tell me what PLP is. You take academic classes with professors, you have a PLP staff, you do programming, you do all, tell me what that looks like. And folks, they got the jobs. Because those people are hiring not for the next week, but for 6 years from now, right? They want to know what you can bring to the table. So I applaud that. As Stephanie, who did a beautiful job, said, tonight's session is 50 years and 50 minutes, the last lecture. In many different roles, it has been a great adventure for me to help shape leaders of tomorrow. So what can I share from the past 50 plus years in the course of less than 50 minutes that will help you in your next 50 years? Probably only the tip of the iceberg. So I'm going to begin with a few reflections about PLP and leadership, and then offer some suggestions about the leadership process. Nearly all significant human progress has been a function of leading and following. The leadership process is the causation part of history. It's why it happened. It is a subject that has drawn the attention of the most significant writers in recorded history. Still, should we bother studying leadership? People ask me, are leaders not born rather than made? Well, I'm here to tell you every single leader that I ever met had been born. I can testify to it. But it's true. There were a couple I weren't sure about, but most of them, yes. Still, these seeming natural leaders. So these seeming natural leaders adopt styles based on several leaders they've observed, just several. But they seem to be able to lead. They seem to be born leaders. But why not employ a more systematic approach to studying the factors of effective leadership from a broader perspective, broader reach? Why be limited to modeling what you do after only several people you've observed? Here's an example. One major research project that I conducted examined the leadership practices of 4,454 executives who over a 5-year period were evaluated by 40,000 of their direct reports and peer executives to determine what transformational leadership more effective. I will suggest to you studying 4,000 people is more effective than studying 3 or 4. As an aside, I got to present that, at that point in time, cutting-edge research on transformational leadership at a conference being held in the honor of Bernard Bass, who was the leading scholar of leadership studies. So I'm up there and all the transformational leadership scholars, along with Bernie Bass right here, and I'm trying to explain this new idea in leadership. Fortunately, it went well. That was real. There was no pressure there, but it was a good experience. So now let's talk about practicing leadership. Regardless of the starting point, people who become better leaders practice leadership. The classroom part of leadership can lay the foundation for understanding how it works and offer recommended approaches. So it's like taking musical instrument lessons for a musical instrument. My guitar instructor quit twice. He said, it's just not worth the effort. I couldn't do it. But I'm sure you can. We can learn a lot about the instrument from the instructor. But if that's all you do, you'll never do anything with it. You have to practice and learn and practice. Hence, I'm going to come to a point now. PLP was designed deliberately to walk on 2 feet. One is those academic classes with highly qualified leadership professors, and the other is the practice, the evaluation, the practical part, the reflection that's led by our immensely capable PLP staff. That's why it works. You have both pieces. So, because I'm a recovering professor, I have to define my terms, right? Isn't that required by the union or something? Is that how they do that? I don't know. So what is leadership? Logan's keeping up. I mean, she's doing a good job here. As our students know from their classes, leadership is a process that involves followers, context, and leading. And it has both moral and motivational elements. I'm going to offer a little bit of advice on each of those in sequence. But I'm going to give you a disclaimer. We're only human. Even at our very best, we're fallible. So when I stand up here on this stage offering you some tips on leading, I do so knowing good and well that I have failed at times. I let my ego, my frustration, my impatience, my exhaustion, or other things to interfere with bringing my best self. So when I tell you all of these things, it's not that I'm perfect and I'm trying to convey them to you. What I'm saying is you and I can pick what we want to improve and check it regularly. And I'm going to give you some ideas here in just a moment. You all hearing me okay? Good. I got some thumbs up in the back. That's wonderful. First is followership. On any given day, I'm likely to be following more than I am leading. That's always true. So here's the main point for following. Be a critical consumer of leadership. It's right up there. If the leader and the leadership process is toxic, or it doesn't align with your values, it's contrary to your values, either try to fix it or get out. Karate Kid, best defense, don't be there, right? Wax on, wax off. Turning to a more positive note, be the kind of follower that matches the kind of leader you would want. Be ethical, be honest, be authentic, give your best. Isn't that what we ask of our leaders? Be the kind of follower that empowers and creates good leaders. It's a two-way street. We have to do our part as followers. The second is context. Oh my. Yes, that's me on the left. In 1979, I was a patrol sergeant. I had been a police officer 5 years in 1979. That was right after they discovered electricity. It was just an amazing, it's an amazing time. I can tell you in that role, I experienced firsthand that context matters. For routine matters, a very participative approach worked just fine. However, when we were executing a warrant for a potentially armed and violent felon at 2 a.m., the leadership style changed a whole lot. It went to a much more directive. These emergency modes are very different contexts than figuring out what the vacation schedule is going to be for the patrol shifts. So in any given day, you're shifting back and forth. But enough of that. I want to move on to another aspect, cultural context, and that's on the right. Now that's a picture of me at one of the top universities in China in July 2017, teaching those students Western views of leadership. Yes, they wanted to know. Do we? So that's very important. So culture matters. Now I want to give you a simplified example. And you're going to learn more about this. If you take Dr. Tien's cross-cultural class that Stephanie mentioned, cross-cultural leadership, you will find out that not every Western perspective on leadership translates equally well into other cultures. Here's an oversimplified example. If you were to get a corporate job at Starbucks, now I love coffee and caffeine, right? So I picked that example. Get a corporate job with Starbucks, and they assign you, for example, to a U.S. location, and you go in on the first day and have an initial meeting with your team. And the first thing you do is say, well, I want your thoughts, I want your input. That's probably going to go very well in the U.S. But if you go to a high power distance society like China, and on the very first day you go in asking them how to do your job, they're going to want to know, well, why don't you know, right? It doesn't say don't ever ask them. It says timing is important. The way you go about it is important. Here's another little tip, and I'll just add this one in. You've heard the phrase, always praise in public and criticize in private or correct in private. It's good advice. Let me give you a nuance. Praising in public, in a high collectivist society, if there's a team and the team is very cohesive and the team does the work and the team and the group is what's important, and you go in and you pull one member out to praise them, That may not work as well as you thought it would. It could create some discomfort for that one person because the team is important. So yes, praise, but be careful how you're doing it. Now, here's the bottom line. We live in a global society. You are very likely to engage with cross-cultural teams in your careers over your next 50 years. So you need to pay attention to those cultural influences. The third is leading. I see two main parts to the leadership process. One is, and this is BLUF, bottom line up front. This is BLUF, bottom line up front. Establish the focal point or the purpose. That takes moral reasoning. Number two is influence others to help achieve the purpose because they genuinely want to do it. That gets into intrinsic motivation. To lead is to go first and show the way to help that happen. So at the outset, I'm going to offer, now for those of you who are studying leadership, this will come as second nature. I'm going to offer 4 models, 3 you've seen. The first is Transforming Leadership by James McGregor Burns. And I liked what he had to say. Yes, that's his book he wrote in 2003. I like what he had to say. It's not transformational, it's transforming for Burns. The importance of the follower role and the moral aspects of leadership were critical to Burns. He was one of my 2 mentors in leadership studies, and I loved learning from him. That picture was taken here at CNU. I invited him to come to CNU he stayed 3 full days here in October of 2001 and met with students and faculty. He loved being at CNU, but I recommend his work. He takes a political social view. Now, the second is Transformational Leadership by Bernard Bass. Bernard Bass was an industrial psychologist. I knew Bernard Bass well. He took Burns's work from the original work from 1978 and then said, wow, this is great. It's political, it's social, but it's this transforming leadership, there's power to that. And so he wrote this book that took that social political view and translated it to how to do it in an organization so you could get people to perform beyond expectations. Make sense? That's what he's up to. So I think Bass was on the right track, except he didn't see the need for the moral aspect, and I disagreed with him on that. And we were at a conference one day, Jim Burns, we were in Toronto, Canada. Jim Burns was talking, and then he finished his talk and came and sat down. I was sitting next to Bernard Bass. Bernard Bass got up and took the podium, and in front of all of his colleagues, he said, Dr. Burns was right, I was wrong. The moral aspect is very important. And that was in the middle of when he was writing his work on authentic leadership. The ethics, the moral aspect, the moral compass is important. But these items are still very relevant. And if you've studied them, you know what the idealized influence, this is going to be really quick, is just the charisma aspect. Inspirational motivation is more related to the vision. Intellectual stimulation is allowing people to learn how to solve problems and be a part of the solution. Individualized consideration is truly caring for people. So those work. Third is Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner's 5 practices of excellent leadership. They're in the book, The Leadership Challenge. Now, each of those 5 has 2 steps underneath it. I'm not going to go through all of that for the sake of time, but essentially what this is, it's a checklist for implementing what Bass wrote. So I recommend reading Bass. I recommend using Kouzes and Posner to look for like 10 action steps you can take to implement transformational leadership. Now, fourth, and I know you're glad for that, I will immodestly offer my own emerging conceptual model. I got to do that, right? Now, after I retire, it's going to be more emerging than it is right at the moment, okay? This is the 7 C's of leadership. Now, when I first started thinking about this, I had no idea our president would be an admiral, right? So the 7 C's works. I like that. But I mean not S-E-A-S is the letter C. And you can see what they are up there. Yes, thank you, Lo. Courage, credibility, conviction, commitment, creativity, clarity, consideration. To me, this sort of wraps in all the things that we read about transformational leadership, and it's just a checklist for how to do it. It goes with the other 3 items. So here we go. Courage is the first of the 7 C's of leadership. When I walked on stage tonight, the background music was from Top Gun, right? Highway to the Danger Zone. As an FAA licensed airplane pilot myself, that song always resonated with me. I loved it. I'd even play it when I was flying, right? That's okay. Passengers were impressed. Not. It also, in addition to airplanes, it also makes sense in leadership. Leadership requires the courage to step out of your comfort zone into something new and uncertain, making tough decisions, being questioned about your wisdom, persuading others to join you on an adventure, and facing the fact that some or many will reject you. Courage also requires us, when we're managers or team or group leaders, to perhaps invite folk to find other pursuits if they're not doing well and they refuse to correct it or can't correct it. Now, some people are not going to like you. Being a leader takes courage. You can make mistakes of the mind, but always try to be right in your heart. Treat people well. But sometimes it's just not the right fit. You have to have the courage to deal with that. Second one is credibility. To follow someone, you have to let your guard down at least a little. And I can tell you, before I let my guard down, I want to know what the person's competence, intent, and veracity is as they're attempting to lead. If we do, listen to me, if we do not believe the messenger, we are not likely to believe their message. So therefore, lead by example and never by exception. If you create rules, follow them yourself. Set the example. Conviction is the third C, and that means the leader is genuinely persuaded of the moral grounding and purpose and direction. They're persuaded of the rightness of the purpose, and that went back to where Bass said leadership now needs to be authentic. I agree. Commitment is the fourth C. My mentor in the Virginia political realm was the late House Speaker A.L. Philpott. I was staying at his house overnight down in Henry County one night, and we were driving on the way back to the state capitol. And I was much, much younger than him. And so I asked him, sir, what one piece of advice would you offer to me as I try to pursue my career? He said, Bob, he thought a while. We'd driven 5 miles. He thought a while, and he said, Bob, here it is. When you commit to something, stick with it. Stick to it, no matter how much it costs you. And do not commit until you know what you're doing. But keep your promises. Don't make promises you can't keep. Also, your commitment or your lack thereof is contagious. Commitment is stick with it. Creativity is the fifth C of leadership. As my dear friend, leadership professor Nathan Harder wrote in one of his books, and I love this, every episode of leadership begins in the imagination. It's all future-based. I love that. Every episode of leadership begins in the imagination. Thank you for that, Professor. I appreciate that. Therefore, imagine the future. Create an adventure. Create a vision of where you're headed and why, what values you're going to pursue. And the selection of values is the moral reasoning part that Martin's talked about. You see how all this is coming back? Clarity. Logan, are you here? Clarity. Thank you. That's how important clarity is, right? Wouldn't it be frustrating if you had to look at that for the next 20 minutes? Clarity is essential in communication. As President Kelly says, we must communicate 7 times in 7 ways and be consistent in our messaging. Be clear and consistent. Clarity in your expectations of others is an act of kindness. That comes from Logan Gill's dad, Chad Gill. Clarity in your expectations is an act of kindness. I'll tell you a very, very quick story. I was in Governor Wilder's office early one morning in the Capitol. I worked directly for the governor. And we had some things to discuss about. And then we had a piece of legislation that was running into a little trouble, and we need to rethink it. And then he said, Bob, can you rewrite that? Get it rewritten for me. And I knew it wasn't going to come up for a few more weeks, at least another week. So I said, well, sure, Governor, I will. So I went to reach into my pocket to pull out my calendar, and he looked at his wristwatch. I said, "Is 2 o'clock okay?" He said, "That's what I had in mind." Clarity is important, right? Okay. Consideration is the seventh and final C. I mean this in terms of that individualized consideration from Bass's model. Investing in relationships. Here's, I didn't create this, someone else said it. They will not care how much you know until they know how much you care. There's a lot of truth to that. So now we've sailed the 7 C's of leadership, and they're up here. Logan, you're doing an amazing job. So if you adopt the Burns, the Bass, Cousin, Posner, and try to play with some of these 7 C's, I think you'll be in good shape. Now, what I want to do now is I'm going to skip past a couple things so we can save time for some discussion. People, here's another lesson that's beyond the 7 C's. People want a sense of control over their destiny and want their lives to have meant something. Now, I don't mean to be morbid, but on a tombstone, there's a day you were born, a dash, and the day you leave. What did you do with that dash? Did you make a difference? Now, great leaders, in my view, help people have their ability to control their contribution to that dash and define that dash. I was driving down the road one day, and back some decades ago, and I heard a song on the radio. I guess they still have radios, right? And it was from 38 Special, and the song is Hold On Loosely. And it's about a relationship, but when I heard it, I said, this makes perfect sense in how to lead. Here are the lyrics. Hold on loosely, but don't let go. If you cling too tightly, you're going to lose control. They need someone to believe in and a whole lot of space to breathe in. That doesn't mean let go. It means free people up with a purpose, cause them to want to achieve. That's the magic. Now, here's a negative one. I hate to give you this one. Would you listen to this one? We are not likely to be well remembered in life for the excellent quality of our excuses, no matter how good they are. Take responsibility. I'm sorry it didn't get done. It's my fault. It's my fault. Finally, this goes back to the danger zone. We cannot wait until all the lights are green to leave on the trip. We will hit red lights. We will hit yellow lights, and we will manage them. In summary, and then we're going to move to the next section, here's what I want to leave you with. Be the leader you would want to follow. Be the follower you would want to lead. Leadership matters. Folks, you've got this. If you cannot find a good leader, go be one. If not you, with all that you're learning, then who will do it? It's you. Now I have the good fortune to call on 2 cherished friends to help with the next part of tonight's discussion, program. It's a discussion. PLP Director Lacey Gray Hunter and CNU Leadership Studies Professor, is an English way to say this, CNU Leadership Studies Professor Lori Throop are going to join me in a discussion on leadership for about the next 15 or 20 minutes. Why them? I first met them both as 2 remarkable 18-year-old students in my leadership classes here. And it warms my heart that they have gone on in their careers to help others in learning about the leadership process. Let's give Lacey Gray Hunter and Lori Throop a CNU welcome. Under the spotlights, we use these in police interrogation, so what's happening here?
Is that what this is all about?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, Dr. Colvin,
Yes.
It has been remarkable to hear what you've had to share with us this evening. Thank you for taking the time. to share that, and I hope you all appreciated the corniness that he incorporated into all of that. Imagine that for an entire semester, actually multiple semesters, and I mean, you know, it's I don't know, luck that we turned out as normal as you and I did, so.
They might laugh harder.
But we really appreciate you taking the time to share this. Want to give a shout out to our alumni and friends who are joining us online as well. So my first question for you, Dr. Colvin, is you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation just how important it is to practice leadership. You also mentioned the importance of studying leadership, and you gave the example of how PLP really functions as two feet. So my question for you is, as you have engaged in a variety of roles throughout your career, how has your perspective, how have your beliefs about leadership changed as a result of those different contexts?
Thank you for the question. Do you have one I can answer?
Yes.
Okay. That's a great question. Let me answer it by telling you why I got into studying leadership. I was first sworn in as a police officer at 19 years old. And I, from that point forward, experienced some really good leaders and some pretty bad ones. So it fascinated me with how that worked and why that worked. And as I got into different organizations, I would notice the good leaders and I would notice where it wasn't working. And in some cases, a good leader would go to a different role and it didn't work. So it fascinated me as to what happened. And that's why I decided I ended up getting my PhD to focus on executive leadership. How does this work? Why does it work? Because it's an important part. So over the time, I guess when I first started out, I saw leadership as more of an organizational construct for companies and firms and governments, more in an industrial type setting. And then it occurred to me that there's a much more political, social part to it. And what I learned from James Burns is that the moral aspect of leadership is huge, and that the role of followers. I came to realize, and this is really true, that the leader and follower, and this is Burns, raise each other up to higher levels of moral reasoning and motivation. It's not one doing something to the other, which many models give you. It's a way to set a process in motion where you support each other. Now, somebody has to lead and show which way we're going to go. But I think it works most effectively when the followers are hugely involved, and that's how it's evolved for me.
Thank you.
Okay. You have often said leadership resides in the minds of the followers. So my question to you is, if leadership resides in the minds of the followers, where does followership reside?
In the mind of the leader. Absolutely. How good of a follower? President Kelly monitors what I do. It gives me work tasks. And he's paying attention to what I'm doing to support the institution and to support him. How good I am as a follower is in his mind. Now, my job is to do it the very best I know how to do it, because I love the place and I love the people. And to me, doing it because you want to is easy part of it. But I often said, you know, the Ferguson Center is a big place, and let's pretend I was walking in the back, and the symphony was practicing. Mark Reimer was conducting, right? The symphony was practicing. And just by happen, as I walk up to the door, his phone goes off, and he comes out to the door, and he says, "Oh, this is an emergency. Bob, hold the baton, and I'll be right back." And so let's just pretend that I walk in and stand up, and I start waving. And by some miracle, I could replicate everything he did, and nobody in the orchestra made a sound, right? So it's just the practice of leadership itself doesn't work. It takes the relationship, it takes the understanding, it takes the background. So just leadership practices don't work without the follower context. So leadership resides in the minds of the follower. How good are you doing with your followers? That's it.
Do you have any particular recommendation if students wanted to hone and develop their followership skills? Where would you point them?
Well, there's a couple answers to that. One, there's an actual followership conference that was held here either a year ago or 2 years ago, where people are starting to study followership. Followership is like, well, I don't want to be a follower. Yeah, I do. I love when I can follow a leader who's doing great things, and together we can go on an adventure. So how do you learn to do that? You give your best, You believe in the purpose. That's the key. And I tell you again, I've worked in an organization, and it was not on my bio. 2 years, 2 months, and 12 days. It was a terrible situation. I finally had to leave. I could not take it because their values and how they operated, I'm surprised it took me that long to see it. But I left there because I'm not going to do something that's going to violate my core values. I'm just not going to do it. That dash on the tombstone, sorry, it's too important. I'm going to follow my values. I'm going to attach myself to a higher purpose, and I'm going to do the very best I can with it. That's the only advice I know to give.
Thank you.
So you, again, going back to this concept of learning and practicing, I think one of the benefits of learning about leadership theories is that you are graduating with a toolkit, a better understanding of how the leadership process can work and how it can function really well. Now, they're called leadership theories for a reason. You mentioned earlier that context matters. And so my question for you is, since it's a leadership theory and context matters, what do you do when everything that you've studied is telling you that leadership should be doing something differently? What do you do when you don't have authority to help people course correct? Let's imagine, I don't know, you're a graduate just out of Christopher Newport. How do you show up powerfully in that situation to help course correct the context?
That is a superb question. Sometimes you don't have power. Sometimes you don't have organizational power. You always have personal power. A piece of advice I would give you in that realm is, let me give you this, incorporate yourself. Incorporate yourself. Now, that may sound silly, but think of yourself as a small company. What skill sets, what traits, what abilities, what can you put together that is you as a company, you incorporated, that is important to whoever you're following, if they're following the right path, and it's equally important to a half a dozen other organizations out there. That makes sense? You build your skill set so that it is marketable. And let me tell you, what you are learning in here, organizations want to know. They want you to have the ability to work in teams. And the liberal arts background that every one of you is getting, how to read complicated material, how to write well, how to think critically, how to dissect everything, question things. You take all of that and then you add this toolkit of how leadership works. You will recognize bad leadership, and the curse of learning leadership is you'll be able to put a proper name to it. You'll know what they're doing wrong, but you'll also know when they're doing right, and you'll know what's in their heart. Try to read their hearts.
Follow-up question for you that
No.
doesn't, that's fine.
Let me ask you a question. All right, both of you. Now, some of you have heard this. All right, few of you. Sorry, this is an example of what they were tortured with. What is oddly humorous and transports people across ground?
A silly bus.
Yes, I just started every class with that. So please read your syllabus, right? Oh, that's a minor one. There's a group of people over here who are still cringing.
So humor can be a really important part of leadership. Where did you get, I'll be generous, I'll call it a sense of humor.
Grace, someone asked me one time, does your family suffer from mental illness? And I said, oh no, we thoroughly enjoy it. Yes. There's no suffering whatsoever. My late father called me one day and said, Robert, I just fell off of a 30-foot ladder. 30-foot ladder's way up. I said, oh, Dad, he was in his 80s. He would do that kind of thing. He'd climb up. I said, Dad, are you in the hospital? Are you okay? He said, no, fortunately, I was just on the first rung. I was tortured with it. That's what happened.
It's important to keep the patterns going. Okay. Speaking of discerning jokes.
Y'all have questions?
One last question, maybe?
Okay.
What are some things in the course of your career and leading in various contexts, including being a parent, what are some things that maybe you wish you had said no to so that you could have said yes to other things?
Well, my family is here, and this is easy. When you're young and you're trying to climb the ladder, you're trying to do your best, you're putting in lots of effort at work, sometimes you don't spend as much time as you should at home. I should have spent a little more time at home, and I tried to balance it the best I could. But if I were to wind the clock back 40 years, I would do it a little different. I would have spent a little more time with my family and a little less time worrying about climbing. Now, don't take that to mean you shouldn't do your very best. You work hard, you do your best, but it's a matter of balancing the priorities in life. Now, I've driven across the state one night, 4 hours to hear my daughter perform a choral concert at her middle school, and then drove 4 hours back the same night to be at where I needed to be. I did some of those things, but if I were to offer advice and just being self-critical and offering it to you, is keep things in perspective, work hard, but keep things in perspective. When the job is done, and I'm retiring December 31st, the family's still here, right?
Thank you, Dr. Colvin.
Thank you. Those are the questions that we have time for, but want to turn it over to you all. The students, what are the questions that you have for Dr. Colvin? We have microphones that are available for you. I hope that you would take advantage of asking some questions. You probably will get an incredibly corny answer, so test that out, see how he would respond to your question.
Right.
We will make memories together. So we got a few people coming up. Abigail, you gonna go first?
Oh, Lord, there's a whole
Awesome.
line.
All right. Go ahead, Abigail.
I wrote mine down 1 second. Can you hear me okay?
So far,
Okay. My name is Abigail. I'm a junior. And my question is, we heard tonight that you've held many different positions and jobs over the years, each time leaving one to go to another. In transitions like these and over the years, is it important to maintain any type of commitment? Why or why not? And what does this look like either way?
maintaining commitment to what?
To whatever you were committed to in your last job, role, or position.
Oh, absolutely. You keep doing the job until the last day. You're eventually going to move on. And when you're going to leave a job, you give those folks adequate notice that you're going to leave. And then you go on to the next job, and then you transition and give there. Always leave, if at all possible, leave on good terms. You were there, you gave your best. It should mean something to you. I mean, my wife is a professor here. My son graduated from here. I love this place. I've got 27 years here. When I leave in December, between now and December 31st, I'm going to leave it all on the field. And then whatever is new in January, I'll go to that. So yes, maintain commitment. Be the kind of follower that you would want.
Will you carry commitments from this current job into your retirement, or have you carried commitments from your first jobs into this one?
Well, depending on how you define commitments, but I'll carry my approach to things on. And sure, I will remain a strong supporter of CNU in every possible way. And I learned lessons in all of those jobs that I take with me. I don't know what's next, and it's incredibly exciting. I don't know what January is going to bring. Maybe consulting or lobbying or writing, and maybe writing a book about leadership, doing some things, staying involved.
He's got to get all those jokes down somewhere.
Yeah, we got to write the jokes down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abigail. We'll go to this side.
Hello, my name is Liz Ryn, and I just had a quick question about, obviously you've had a long time to see how leadership has expanded over time and the evolutions between it. What is the biggest change that you've seen in elements of leadership, and how do you think that's going to affect what you think the future of leadership is?
Probably one of the biggest change I've seen is social media and how it affects our perceptions of events and policies and people and electronic. I mean, when I started working, cell phones didn't exist, email didn't exist. Yes. But it's how we communicate electronically. And I think that's a key. We have to figure out how to manage that well and not lose the personal relationships. Before email and before all of that, when you engage with somebody, you were right there. And now you have, it's a little different. So, a good question. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Angle this. Alrighty. Hello, Dr. Colvin. My name is Isel Pedroza, and as a sophomore, I took Dr. Tien's cross-cultural leadership, and I believe that was probably one of my favorite leadership courses I've taken here at I've taken here at CNU.
Yay, Dr. Tien!
And I wanted to ask you, what was your favorite course to teach here at CNU and why? Was there a particular moment while teaching the course that continued to define your career here at CNU?
What was my favorite?
Your favorite course was in the fall of 2020, or 2005. Leadership 240, I was in it.
Well, that is true. I liked all of them. And you may not have. I enjoyed what used to be Leadership 310 or 385. It's changed. The theory course, so trying to understand leadership and how it works and how we could apply it. But I also really enjoyed values-based leadership. I wrote that course. I created that course. I also created the theories course, back to the original version. But the values-based course that I created then was my other mentor was Gil Fairholm, who wrote the book on values-based leadership. And I thought he was exactly right in terms of what you're doing is you are leading people forward on a set of agreed upon values. You are advancing values. Lacey Gray asked me the other day, well, what morals will you lead on? Well, if we knew that, we wouldn't need leadership. It's a debate every day. And what you go first, you show the way. You say, this is the higher purpose we should achieve. And you try to bring people together because they want to be with you on an exciting adventure. And that doesn't mean that applies whether it's a team here at CNU or a group or a club, is pulling the people together so they can contribute and be a part of something bigger than themselves. And it's up to you to make it that way.
Alrighty, awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name's Sam, and last semester I was in the special topics class with Paul Tribble. And when you came and spoke to us, you told a story about your time as a police officer, and you told the story about like sacrificial leading and leading by example, where you put yourself in a potentially threatening situation. And I remember leaving that class feeling very moved and touched by that, and I was wondering if you could tell that again for everyone here.
Remind me of the story. It could have been one I just made up, so I don't know.
It involved a younger officer who was expecting a child, and you put yourself.
Oh, absolutely. His name's Bob Fleet, and he was a young officer. I was a patrol sergeant. We had a structure that we thought someone had burglarized, and we're in it, potentially in it at the time. And the only place we had not searched as late at night was a basement in that building. And we had searched around, and I knew he was getting married 2 weeks later. And he went to open, and there's only one way down. And depending on what you face at the bottom of the stairs can change a lot of things. So when he went to open that door, I said, no, you're not either. You're getting married in 2 weeks. You stay here. I'm going down. He and I have been friends ever since. I can tell you that. And I wanted to lead, to show the way. You got to care. You got to care about folks. And that was my way, in a very short, simple way of showing you're important to me, and your life is important to me, and I will go first.
You're important to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Colvin. Whoa, that's loud. Good Lord. My name is Mason. I'm a junior. You've spoken a lot about how many people you've influenced. You had a lot of leadership roles and a lot of opportunities to influence a lot of people over your time at CNU. You've also spoken a lot about a lot of mentors and peers who have influenced you. But could you speak a little bit about a time one of your followers has influenced you, why that was notable to you?
One of the followers have influenced me. Well, yeah, there's so, over that length of a career, there's so many in law enforcement work, the bravery that I saw, I lost friends who were shot and killed, the bravery that I saw having to be with their families, it was tough. But the followers, like here, the faculty, when I was department chair for leadership studies, a number of you are here when we were first starting out. There was just a few of us, and we were about creating something wonderful. And I wasn't all-knowing just because I was a chair. I was sort of just a conductor. I was waving the baton, and they were doing everything. So what they challenged me to be the best I could be. So, and that's the key. They challenged me to not let them down. And that's happened throughout a lot of the different parts of my career. And when you know they're counting on you, you're gonna give it your best, because it matters. And I want to reemphasize, folks, you are getting an amazing education, not only at CNU and liberal arts and majors, but in that toolkit of leadership. You are going to be well prepared. Our nation, our world needs you. We need what you can do. You have a 50-year plus a career ahead of you. I don't. You have that career ahead of you. Please take what you're learning here, go make our world a better place.
Thank you, Dr. Colvin.
Thank you. 50 years, we're not done yet, there's two things. 50 years, 50 minutes. Will you take a moment, because moments come and they go very quickly. I want you to take a moment and look out here. Take a deep breath in. And I hope you take a moment to be proud of the foundation that you created and the happy thanks for the tissues.
I know, she got me too.
You've created something.
Don't keep them to yourself.
They're in my pocket somewhere. But you have been an instrumental creator in something that is truly bigger than yourself. And by challenging people, but also because you care for people, you have created a legacy that is going to continue well beyond just your 50 years. And when PLP began, it was 20 students, and some of our students had class, some of our students I don't know knew about tonight, but that's their problem, not mine. But what I'm trying to say here is that there's nearly 1,000 students that are here. What began as a shared vision between you and President Tribble, this is what has been created. And students, I hope you realize that you are also part of something that is bigger than yourselves. And tonight you had the opportunity to really learn from what I refer to, who I refer to as the godfather of leadership. And I mean that as a compliment. Lori, would you want to add anything to that?
I just hope that as you all sit in your leadership classes, that what you're feeling right now, that you would bring that into the classroom. If you want to learn about leadership, you have to be curious about it. You have to engage. And so don't miss it. Don't miss it. The students make what you all learn about in the leadership classroom happen.
Yes.
So I hope after tonight that you will just remember and be inspired and maybe change some things about how you show up in your studentness, in this gift of time that you've been given. Because this is awesome. It is awesome to get to learn together. And we need you. We need to learn with you. So I'm stoked for the classroom next week. You also gave part of my lecture for Tuesday, so thank you. It's great.
Dr. Colvin, I have one final thing for this evening, but before that moment, are there any parting words of wisdom that you would like to share? or a joke.
Thank you. No, I won't do a joke now. To see my family here tonight is touching. To see my colleagues and former students is touching. Thank you to the President and First Lady and the Rector for being here. Thank you for being a part of this program. You are helping make my dash meaningful because I've tried to leave something for you. Thank you.
Two small tokens of appreciation for you from your leadership colleagues. The first is a Jefferson Cup, and many of us may be aware of what a Jefferson Cup symbolizes, but invented by Thomas Jefferson, hence why it's called a Jefferson Cup, is something symbolic, and we have selected to provide you with a Jefferson Cup. You can fill it with whatever beverages or things you want to fill it with. But it has the PLP logo on one side, and then on the other, it has your name, last lecture, and today's date. So that is yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
And secondly, I am pleased to present you with what I am calling the first chapter of last lecture, Lasting Memories. We had a lot of alumni who are here with us this evening, and we also had a lot of alumni who were not able to join us in person this evening, and so we've collected the words of gratitude.
Oh my.
As I was reading it today, I teared up myself, and I believe that you are going to so very much enjoy reading what alumni have to say, their words of gratitude to you. And so when you talk about that dash, I hope that this helps you understand the meaning that you've created in so many people's lives. So
Now I am going to cry.
chapter. It's just the first chapter.
Thank you.
All right?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. This concludes this evening's President's Leadership Speaker Series event. I will see you all again on April the 22nd for our next Leadership Speaker Series event. More information will be coming, and I think you'll be really excited. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Colvin.